This episode of Her Design, Her Story is proudly sponsored by Royal Oak Floors, the founders of engineered oak flooring in Australia. Elegant yet durable, practical yet luxurious, Royal Oak Floors have formed the foundations of inspiring Australian architecture and interior design for over 20 years, with flooring products that are uniquely tailored to Australian lifestyles. Royal Oak Floors is proud to announce the launch of 4 new colours in its renowned architect collection, the result of collaborative workshops in which design professionals shared emerging trends, unmet needs and evolving preferences in Australian interiors. We're proud to partner with a brand that values craftsmanship, sustainability and the stories behind every space. Explore the new colours at royaloakfloors.com.au. Genevieve Wallis is a designer whose work sits at the intersection of creativity, storytelling, and thoughtful innovation. Known for her distinctive approach to design, she has built a reputation for creating work that is both visually compelling and deeply human-centred. Across her diverse career, Genevieve has explored how design shapes the way we experience the world, from the spaces and products we interact with to the emotions and connections that they inspire. In today's episode, we'll dive into her creative journey, the influences that have shaped her perspective, and the lessons she's learned navigating the ever-evolving design industry. We'll also explore her process, how she balances aesthetics with purpose, and why curiosity remains at the heart of meaningful design. Genevieve, welcome to Her Design, Her Story. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And I'm very excited you've made the trip from Ballarat, so it's wonderful to have you here in person.
Thank you.
You have had a really interesting career, quite a varied career, which I think is always very inspiring in the lead up to starting your design studio. So I'd love to go back to the very beginning of your career journey and talk around those first pathways for you when you left school.
So I went to high school in Ballarat and then I immediately got out of there and went to university at Deakin in Geelong and did
amazing.
My degree in public relations with major in journalism.
Yep.
And from there I went straight to Melbourne and worked in a couple of smaller fashion houses, just doing their public relations and communications.
Yep.
And from then I ended up getting into agency work and worked at 2 of the biggest agencies at the time in Australia. And I was working across some really big brands. I was working across Chadstone, Westfield, Spring Racing Carnival, Porsche, Hilton, some really, really big global brands. So that was a great experience and very fun times back then in the early 20s. Yes, yeah.
I can imagine. So that was all based out of Melbourne?
That was in Melbourne, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was in Melbourne for probably about 10 years all up.
Oh, wow.
And loved that. I miss Melbourne. I don't miss the parking, but I do miss Melbourne very much.
Yeah. So what was that transition like? So obviously you've now got your interior design business. What was that? How did you sort of foray over into design from the work you were doing?
Yeah, so I'd sort of, we had 3 children really quickly. We had 3 children in 3.5 years.
Oh, wow.
The boys were both born in Melbourne and we moved back to Ballarat on our knees, desperate for family support when I was pregnant with Clementine. And I had been doing at that point, I'd left the agencies and I had been doing a bit of freelance work, a little bit of fashion journalism, a little bit of fashion communications and marketing, and also some fashion styling. I'd sort of found myself doing some editorial styling.
Yeah.
And when we went back to Ballarat, I needed to do something. I need to work. I've always needed to work for me. And I knew obviously the fashion industry in Ballarat is non-existent.
Yeah.
Even there's the comms industry in Ballarat is very regional.
Yeah.
So I knew that I would probably have to pivot. And I think working for so long over that sort of decade, predicting trends and forecasting trends was my job every day.
Yeah.
And so I became very, very good at it. And I could see interior design in Melbourne in particular becoming a really big thing. Even across social media was starting, Instagram was becoming a really big thing that was sort of 2014. The block was really big as well. So
Yeah.
people were becoming really interested in interior design. And often what happens is a trend that's really big in the metropolitan cities will follow in the regional cities a couple of years later.
Yeah.
So I could see that there was probably going to be a gap in the market for really contemporary interior design in Ballarat and regional Victoria in a couple of years. So if
It's
I
very perceptive.
it was probably one of my
I love
smartest
that.
moments,
Yep.
yeah. So I knew if I got on the front foot and went to study, I would probably be ahead of the game.
That's
Um,
amazing.
in hindsight, I wish that I had have gone to RMIT and done that full course, but I did the design school course, which so many of us
Yeah,
have
quite a
been
few
through.
people have, yes, that I've spoken to have done.
And then I was able to sort of be really, truly on the front foot by the time I launched the business.
Oh, that's amazing. So did you work for any other interior designers before you launched your
Uh,
studio?
I thought that I would. That was always my
Yeah.
plan. And especially working in communications agencies, you literally start from the bottom. You're a coffee runner. You
Yeah.
do the absolute bottom skills and you work your way up.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my experience, and that's what I thought I had to do with interior design as well. A couple of things I saw. I would go to a lot of industry talks, and Julia Green
Oh,
was
yes,
doing a lot of
yes.
talks at the time. And she said once, you know, you can't forget when you're transitioning careers, you cannot forget that you're not starting from the bottom again. You're
Yeah,
actually
that's a fair
taking
point.
all of the skills that you've learned in your previous career and you're rolling that over into a new career. So you're not starting from the bottom. So that was really instrumental to my thinking. But also what happened was I got this very random phone call one night while I was making dinner for the kids in Ballarat, and I'd nearly finished design school.
Yep.
And it was from a lady called Georgie Coughlin, who was a host of the project at the time.
Yes.
And she was living in Ballarat, and she and her husband had purchased a hotel with a restaurant down the bottom, and they were doing a renovation. And they'd got another interior designer, a beautiful interior designer who's up in Wagga Wagga now called Kath Mills. She was on board already, but they needed another set of hands because it was an enormous job
Yeah.
and a very quick turnaround. And so she said, you know, I've heard that you've almost finished your diploma and we really need an extra set of hands. Would you like to come help? And I was like, oh, yes.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't think at the time, though, I really knew what I was getting myself into.
Sometimes that can be quite good.
Yes, ignorance is bliss in that
Yep.
in that situation. And so I was kind of juggling the last bit of design school. I actually was working part-time in a comms role at the tourism board. I had the 3 tiny kids and I was
Wow.
travelling up and back from Melbourne to do design school and doing this hotel project at the same time.
That's
So
amazing.
I don't know how I did it, but I did it.
Yeah.
But what happened from there was that the launch of the Provincial Hotel and Lola restaurant was so big that it was such a great platform for me
Oh,
to
that's
launch my
amazing.
career off. And the clients just started coming from there, and I really didn't have the opportunity to go and work for anyone else
Yeah.
because I didn't need to,
Yeah.
which is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've had a few people now I've spoken to who similarly have come from other experiences. So certainly I think there are so many other components that fulfill the idea of running an interior design studio rather than just the design itself, because
Yeah.
often even if you work for another designer, you don't often get that exposure to the business side or the financial aspect or
Correct.
necessarily the
Yes.
communication component, which is such a big one as well. But they've also spoken about that joy sometimes in not having to keep comparing yourself back to someone else because you're just setting your own precedent, which can be quite a fresh approach.
Yeah, it can. I mean, it's risky.
Yeah.
It's very risky, which I think also at the time I didn't realize how risky it was. I think I was aware of how little experience I had in the industry, but until you're
Yep.
doing it and you think, oh my God, I've got no idea how to do this,
Yeah.
and you're learning on the job, which for me is actually the best way.
Yeah.
But what I also did, which was probably one of the best things I could have done, was went and signed up about 9 local builders to do their colour consultations,
Oh, amazing.
which was dry work. It wasn't
Yep.
overly creative, but I think over the 3 years that I was doing those, I probably did about 700 consultations,
Oh, wow.
which was sort of doing the same thing over and over again, but working with those estimators, working really closely with the builders, learning how to work with allowances, material selections, and just going from a house end to end, and interpreting a brief really, really quickly, because you've only kind of got between 2 and 6 hours with each client. So that was the best thing that I could have done to really cement my technical knowledge.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. And no doubt exposing you to quite an interesting array of people
Very much so, yeah, and different
as well.
budgets, and yeah, it was probably one of the best things that I could have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. So obviously, before we touch on the sort of evolution of your studio, I did want to go back to, I guess, growing up in Ballarat. I think that's incredibly perceptive, reading the situation like you did. I don't think I've ever thought about the design industry that way. I'm thinking, oh, wow. Growing up, did you have sort of creative people in your family or any mentors around you that had sort of inspired you to follow that pathway?
Yeah, I am the very odd byproduct of my dad was a criminal lawyer and my mum was very much a free spirit, a wild free spirit.
Good combination.
A
though.
good
Yeah.
combination. And as I get older, I find I'm very much a split between the two of them as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I grew up with Dad, and he was always very house proud, very big on presenting yourself neatly always. He was very well dressed. And when he renovated a house when I was in high school, and he got an interior designer to do the interiors, and we went next door. The next door neighbours were renovating at the same time, and they'd also used this same interior designer. And we went next door when all the renovations were finished, and it was literally a mirror for our house.
Oh, how
She had
funny.
just used the same colour combinations in both houses. And I remember thinking, what a shame to not be able to
Yeah.
get to know each of the clients and really put their personalities into each of the homes,
Yeah.
and instead
Very
just create
brave
a carbon
in your
copy.
neighbours.
So I think that for me was I think I was like, if you're ever going to do a house, you should do something that is innately you.
Yeah.
But then I think also, having Dad really strive so hard to create a home for us without a mum. Growing up without a mum, it is quite ostracizing sometimes, especially being a girl.
Yeah.
And Dad just, even when things were probably a bit chaotic, our home was always really beautiful and really
Yeah.
well presented. And I really drew a lot from that experience.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? I remember I grew up similarly where both my parents were very into the aesthetic of our home, and my mum particularly put a lot of time and thought into spaces, and she was very clever with all that kind of thing as well. And it's sort of when you move out of home
Yeah.
that you realise,
It's not that easy. Yeah.
Or how much, I guess it's that Ellen DeBoton philosophy of, the impact of the space around you.
Yeah, very
which is
much
so
so.
important.
Yeah, very much. And
Yeah.
I still, I'll speak to clients about that a lot now, that our homes are so much, they need to be a space that we feel like we can belong. So when the world
Yeah.
is chaotic, when work is just in crisis mode, or we really do need that sanctuary at home to ground us. And so I think
Yeah.
sometimes people do underestimate how important it is to have a home that you feel really yourself, and you feel really clutter free and calm, and just somewhere that is a reflection of who you are.
Yeah. No, and it is that sort of sense of oasis, I
Totally.
think. And it's interesting, we had to move some furniture around recently, and one of my daughters came home and she was quite thrown that a couple of artworks were missing. She's like, where's our house? I'm like, it's still here. But it's funny, children do notice, I think, the things that
Yeah.
start to create that meaning
Very much.
for them, which is interesting. Jumping ahead a little bit now, Genevieve Wallis Studios has been going for close to 9 years, which is amazing.
Thank you.
And incredible longevity, particularly with COVID and
Yeah.
all the things that go on. Could you describe a little bit around your current role and business structure at the moment?
Yeah. So I'm creative director of Genevieve Wallis Studio. My role is pretty weighted at the front end of a project, which is sort of meeting with potential clients, taking their brief, creating the design concept, and then all of the selections. I do all the custom joinery designs, and obviously from my background, I do try to do the marketing. But
Yes.
that is amazing how I could market anybody else's business.
Yeah.
But when it comes to marketing my own, I am
It's
terrible.
really hard.
It's
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah.
And look, I am not. It's being in front of the camera is not my happy place, and that probably is what hinders most of it. But I just find it so hard.
Yeah, it can be really challenging.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah.
I also have a business partner, Ash. Ash looks after, he's sort of like an operations and logistics manager. I call him general manager, but when it's just the two of you, that's a bit of a redundant role.
Yeah.
Ash looks after the contracts and the onboarding. He's very hands-on with a lot of the trades. So we find
right.
increasingly we're being engaged to do a retainer throughout the duration of each build, just to keep that really one-on-one contact with the trades and the client, and just to make sure that the finishes are sort of where we wanted them to be.
Yeah.
So Ash will do a lot of those on-site visits. But look, we're both probably across all the details of every project. We just try to split the roles a little bit. In terms of how the business has evolved, we specialise in renovations and new builds.
Yeah.
And we also sort of dabble in a little bit of commercial hospitality and wellness. So we have just done a lawyer's office, which was super fun.
Amazing.
Yeah, we loved doing that one actually. Most of our clients are architectural. We get a lot of our business leads from architects.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
increasingly they're also end to end. So we'll do from, the very start of the concepting right through to furnishing and install as well, which we find is really good. I think you get a great result when you've got the one designer working across that project the whole way, because everyone is so immersed in it. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. Obviously, over that 9 years, there's probably been a few ebbs and flows within the business. Have there been any key sort of changes or milestones that have impacted how you've operated over that time?
Always.
Yeah.
There's been so many iterations of the business. So I started as a sole operator. I then at one stage had a team, but actually that team was throughout COVID, and they were all amazing. And I have a terrible habit of getting really attached to my team members.
Yeah.
But I had also separated from my husband really early into COVID.
Yeah.
And so the business was then at a really pivotal point where it wasn't just something nice for me to be doing. It was very much make or break. Like, I had to make the business work. I did not have a choice. I didn't have a plan B, which is also very much me.
Yeah.
So I brought on the team, and then after a couple of years, I found that it was quite. I remember a boss of mine at one stage in the agency said, "Oh, it's really lonely at the top," and I thought, "You idiot, you poor thing." But actually, in hindsight, there was some truth to that, because I found that I was responsible for my team members. I was responsible for bringing in new business. I was responsible for my kids. I was responsible for my mortgage, and there was just no support. My dad had passed away by that point, and there was just no support for me.
Yeah.
And that was when the burnout really started to creep in. That was the beginning of that. But I consolidated the team and went back to just being a sole operator and focused on taking fewer projects but bigger. And that was kind of the way that I worked for about 3 years.
Yeah, before you brought on Ash.
Before I brought on Ash.
Yeah, how did Ash fall into the equation?
Ash was a client. Ash and his wife
wow.
and his two beautiful daughters were a client. They did a renovation in Ballarat in 2024 or 2023.
Yeah.
And Ash's background, he was a CFO of a big, fast-moving consumer goods company, and he had sort of been touching base after his project finished. Though I must say, he project managed that.
Oh, wow.
And he project managed it like I've never seen. Like, he worked with those trades and worked them to the ground.
Yeah.
So I was impressed by watching the skills and his devotion to that. But he'd been touching base intermittently and sort of just saying, I love the design industry, and if you ever need a hand, let me know, because I would be really, really keen to help, just as a creative project on the side. And I think what I know now, what he sort of hinted at, is that he was watching me run the business and just going, there's so much potential here, and you are running it into the ground. Because look, there's things that we're good at and there's things that we're not.
And I also find, I think sometimes as a sole operator it can be challenging because you don't have that person constructively
Totally.
challenging you or getting you to hone in on certain things. And it's easy to have so many ideas. But
So
even
many.
coming back to that marketing point, I think you actually can't do it all. But sometimes it's so expensive to outsource everything as well. So it's a balance. Yeah.
And I think when you don't have, I often say to people, I think everyone's got a general sense of business knowledge. And then sometimes a business can grow to the point where it's actually above and beyond what your general sense of business knowledge is. And that's when you probably should go and do a master's in business or something like that. But I didn't have the time for that. So the business definitely did get to a point where it had grown way more than I knew how to deal with. And I didn't know about scaling. I didn't even know that scaling a business was a thing. I think that's when Ash was kind of looking at me going, whoa, what are you doing with this really great business? And I was just working. I was just keeping it running and doing all the things. But strategically, it was probably starting to lack. So I then went through some pretty heavy burnout in 2024, just because, like you were just saying, I was doing all the things and trying to be all things to all people, and the one person that does affect is yourself.
Yeah.
And so I took a sabbatical actually. At the start of 2025, I stopped taking on new clients, which was a really difficult decision.
Yeah.
I sold my house, which the kids and I had renovated, and we took on a rental, and I just really locked down. And then when I kind of recovered from the burnout, I thought, well, I don't know much at the moment, but I know two things. I know that I am not ready to throw away the business.
Yeah.
And I can't keep doing it the way that I've been doing it.
Yeah.
So I got in touch with Ash and asked him out for a coffee, and I just said, this is not a threat, but if you don't come on board, I am going to shut the business down. And so I shot my professional shot, and it paid off. So he has segued out of his CFO role. Originally, he was sort of doing a little bit on the side. He segued out of his CFO role, and he has come on board full time, and it's just the two of us in the business. It's really good.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I think it's hard because often people say to me, oh, do you have staff and things like that? And I can see absolutely the benefit and but I think that sense of having to be responsible for children and then managing that sort of element at work, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So that's amazing timing, because I feel like that's often what a lot of us are lacking, is that someone helping steer the
Totally. And we
journey.
share an office with one of my girlfriends. She's in branding, and she'll often just sit there. She's a sole operator, and she'll be like, oh, I need an Ash.
Yeah.
It's like we all do. Everyone needs an Ash. Yes.
Oh, that's amazing though, and a wonderful sort of organic way to bring someone into the business. He's obviously seen what you're capable of and worked with you.
Yeah, and I think at that
process.
time as well, to have someone really believe in you when you're sort of starting to lose a little bit of that self-belief as well. That was probably really what I needed at the time. And again, this is a theme throughout this interview, but I didn't realise what we were jumping into. I didn't realise how big a deal being a business partner with someone would be. It's, it's a binding contract. It's really no different to a marriage. But we're very lucky in that what was effectively a shotgun wedding is working really well.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to trust that intuition.
You do, yeah.
A little bit as well, and what's working with you.
Very much, yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
And I think an incredible credit to you that you've, navigated those challenges and kept the studio going.
Yeah,
it can be tricky.
It can be tricky.
Yeah, with children and COVID and all sorts of things.
All the things, yes.
It's always fun. In terms of the work you're doing currently, you're based in Ballarat. Is that the sort of main area that you're doing work?
Yeah, we do find most of our projects are sort of Ballarat based. We've got one up in Deniliquin, we've got one in Witchyproof, we've got one down in Warrnambool. So we really are servicing a lot of regional Victoria. We do. One of our sort of strategies for this year is to try and segue into more the Surf Coast, Mornington Peninsula way, Melbourne definitely. I mean, we do often have at least one or two on in Melbourne at a time, but we do want to diversify geographically. But we find a lot of our projects are in Ballarat, really just because people enjoy having that person that they can talk to really close by.
Yeah.
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 I mean, you would find that you get called on site at the last minute, and sometimes travelling an hour is tricky.
Well, that, and also sometimes a supply network as well. I know there's probably an element because Ballarat's not that far from Melbourne, but
Yes.
I think sometimes trying to utilise and celebrate some of the more local suppliers,
Yeah,
it's a different
definitely.
kind of knowledge set
Yeah.
as well. One of the wonderful things when you and I were talking earlier that I thought was a lovely sentiment was design should be accessible to everyone. And we were talking about what that sort of perception of an interior designer looks like. And often with social media and scrolling and things like that, it can be very easy to get wedded to images which are often very stylized for magazine shoots or that kind of thing. How does that kind of feed into your business ethos, that sense of accessibility? Does that come into the types of projects you take on?
Well, yes and no. It's very much our ethos that we think that interior design should be accessible to everybody. What we have found is we've done some really enormous, quite iconic jobs in Ballarat, and we have found that it is starting to pigeonhole us in a way that for some companies, for some businesses, that could be great. It's not where we want to be though, and we're kind of cancelling ourselves out of that really sweet middle market where there's, they may not have ever used an interior designer before. Their budget may not be huge, but they've really got a passion about wanting to make their home beautiful. And we often say to clients when we get a discovery call, they'll say, oh, it might be a bit small. And it's like, there is no such thing as too small.
Yeah.
Because even if it is just helping pick a couple of finishes or something, it is still, we find it really rewarding, and so does the client.
Yeah.
So what we're working on at the moment is this sort of design workshop concept where it's a small set fee, and we can come in and do. It might be that you have done your building with a volume builder, and you've done your finishes, you've done your colour selections with the builder already, but you're not sure about a few things, and we can sort of run through everything and just suggest some tweaks. We can completely overhaul it. It could be that you've got one or two rooms that need furnishing. It could be, it's really vast. It's pretty much for people who already have that design concept in mind though.
Yeah.
And it's just fine tuning the details.
Yeah.
But I think that then makes it, especially at the moment with the economy, the way that it's going, it then makes interior design really far more accessible than what people are starting to sort of think that it is, those big budget projects and high-end finishes. That's just not for everybody.
I know, and I feel it's sort of an interesting industry, isn't it? I remember when I started in architecture and the first sort of GFC hit, I was so naive to what was happening.
Yes.
But I remember a lot of economists would come into the architecture firm. It was a big architecture firm I was working for, to do a lot of preemptive analysis of the market, because they were saying often it's those big projects that go on hold the minute someone's a bit worried about the economy, and I guess that filters down into the design projects, which was quite fascinating in COVID because everyone was so busy.
So busy. And we were all scared at first thinking, what are we going to do? And then it's the busiest time.
Yeah. So it sort of ebbs and flows. So no, I think that idea of adaptability and flexibility is important as well. And I think also coming back to that sense of burnout and mental health, I've found a lot of it's so much about the client, not always about the work. Like you have some wonderful connections with people, really rewarding, can be a lot more fulfilling.
And we are so lucky we somehow seem to just get the most beautiful clients.
Yeah.
And I think because a lot of our builds are, sort of 2 to 3 years from concept to handover, you get to know the clients really well.
Yeah, and you sort of, it's
you
funny
build
how
beautiful
time passes.
relationships.
Yeah, which is special. Particularly, I imagine in a market like Ballarat where it is a lot of the work you get is it's sort of word of mouth.
Yeah, it's funny. Well. It is. I mean, I've spent most of my life in Ballarat now, so you know a lot of people, but I find a lot of the clients that we've got coming to us now, they're not people that I know. They're people that have sort of seen our work. Actually, hospitality has been great for that because you get so many people through the door, and then they'll go to a few different venues and they'll notice a bit of a design theme, or they'll sort of think, oh, this might be that same designer. So we get a lot of our projects through the hospitality venues as well.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So working across a mixture of hospitality, residential.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Obviously, as I said, 9 years is very impressive.
Thank you.
Are there any key goals for you on the horizon for your business at the moment, or do you feel like you're just sort of enjoying being at that comfortable? Sounds like your structure's well in place.
Yeah, so we definitely, structure is in place. We've just done a rebrand, which was really good. We've just relaunched the website. I think really just launching that workshop concept into the market and really kicking that off, I think that will probably keep us really busy. We also, we've got these huge projects that are still ongoing, and just continuing with the momentum of the business. I think it's in a really good place. Yeah.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
I guess where you're at the moment with your career and probably age of children and things like that. And no doubt probably after taking a bit of a sabbatical a couple of years ago would have been quite a reflective time for you, which sometimes, I mean, it's never great when you feel like it's a bit forced or out of, burning yourself out. But are there any key personal attributes which you've sort of reflected on, which you feel have really helped you maintain that business over the 9 years?
Yeah, I think I'm an enormous empath.
Yeah.
So I am able to really quickly attune myself to what clients need.
Yeah.
And also my ability to really quickly interpret a brief as well. It means that I can kind of very quickly analyze what they're looking to get out of this sort of project partnership.
Yeah.
And reiterate their brief back to them in an amplified way, in an elevated way, and being able to say, I think this is a great idea that you have, and this is how we can sort of build on that. That has really, really helped along the way. I think also just knowing that you don't know everything and being okay with that. I think there's something really gracious in curiosity. And I'm probably the biggest pain on a work site because I will go in and fire off 1 million questions at the trades because you don't know what you don't know.
No, and I think I remember sitting in a finance meeting once, which is absolutely not my strong point, for something completely different. And I was asking all these questions and I turned to someone and I said, oh, being so annoying. And he said, no, there's never a bad question.
Yes.
He's like, I'd rather you sat here asking the questions than pretending everything's fine and then something happens. And I also think with construction as well, you're constantly learning. Builders have different ways of doing things. Yeah. You can always take that thinking to the next project.
Exactly. You take it with you. And I think that sort of got me to a point where my technical knowledge is very, very strong. And I think subconsciously that's kind of what we notice as consumers. That technical detail is the difference between a mediocre project and a really phenomenal project.
Yes.
It's often the things that we don't even realise are there, those layers of detail. So that I love that part of the job as well. I really love expanding my knowledge constantly.
Yeah. Oh no, I think that keeps it interesting as well and keeps us motivated. Which leads quite well into my next question. I guess that idea of inspiration and motivation. I know, when you're one of the great things I think with interior design is and I think working across different scales of projects, you've always got something fresh to think about, which keeps it really interesting. Are there any key go-tos for you when you're starting a new project and you're looking for inspiration? What sort of keeps you inspired in the work you're doing?
I am always really layered with guilt about this because I I don't scroll interior design algorithm feeds.
It's probably better for you.
I feel
like I get into these holes of
you go down the rabbit hole.
So much time. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you start to I imagine there's a little bit of comparison that creeps in and I don't think that's good for confidence. I also have never really read. Oh God, I've never really read design magazines that much either.
Yeah.
Again, for the same reason, because I want to be able to come up with my own ideas, and I think
Yeah.
I am lucky in being able to spot a trend and it sticks with me in my brain. So I can see it once and that's it; it's in my brain.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't need to keep seeing it and keep comparing my
Yeah.
work to other people. And also, I would hate for one of my projects to be published and someone to be like, "That's exactly like mine."
Yeah, and it can be quite overwhelming. I had some clients recently who were basically in that they just had so many images that they liked, all completely different.
Yeah.
And it's like you at some point it just has to be true to the brief,
Yes.
the location, the budget, all those sorts of things, and it was all getting quite noisy
Yeah,
in the background.
exactly.
So sometimes I think
The
it's that.
overwhelm.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't until I started seeing my partner, Jason, he was quite a good footballer until he was injured, but he doesn't watch AFL. And that I couldn't get my head around that because every man that I've ever known has always watched AFL. And I was like, "What? Why don't you watch it?" And he was like, "Because I do it. I do it every week. I know the game inside out. I know other people's plays inside out. And it's not relaxing or enjoyable for me to be sitting here watching
that's
other people
true.
play." And I was like, that's probably maybe that's why I try to distance myself so much from design-led imagery. And because, I mean, I'm lucky enough not to need to, I guess.
Well, I think that comes back to that wonderful sense of intuition.
Yes.
And I still think very perceptive. The first comment around reading that sort of trend and looking ahead as well. And sometimes I think if you happen upon something or actually experience something in person, you can absorb more from that than looking at too many images.
Definitely. And don't you think also it's like as designers, I think a lot of us have this ability to visualize things, which I didn't realize is not a skill everybody has.
Yeah. It's challenge. I find it challenging now as well with clients trying to use AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that is not how it's going to look. So often we'll get things rendered, but even then it's I find it frustrating that I can't actually do the render myself.
Same.
It's that what you see in your head and what I'm sort of drawing an elevation or sketching, trying to portray that.
Yes, it gets lost in
people.
translation
it
a little
does.
bit.
Yeah.
We had a client the other day say, "Oh, so can you make those changes to the render in real time at the meeting?" And I was like, "Oh, this is where we're at. This is what people are used to now." But no, we can't because it doesn't work like that, because we need to really sit down and explore the tones that we're using and the materials that we're using.
Yeah.
And so it is not as simple as that, but I think that's where consumers are going. That's what they're getting used to, that really instantaneous image being produced.
Yeah, which is quite scary.
It is a bit.
Or you see someone came to me with an image the other day and I was thinking, I just don't even know how you build that.
I know.
It's just not possible or very expensive.
Correct. Yeah,
Very
there's always a way.
expensive.
Yeah.
I know, which is crazy. We touched on earlier, you have 3 children.
Yes, yep.
Which I've got 3 children. I appreciate incredibly busy, which is amazing. And having navigated that on your own through COVID, I think is truly inspiring. How does that balance of work and life look for you at the moment?
I think actually I was listening to Corinne.
Oh, Corinne Boschnick.
Yes. And she has a similar setup to me, and actually she seemed to frame her weeks in the same way that I have my kids week on, week off.
Yes.
I'm really lucky to have a very cooperative co-parenting arrangement with my ex-husband and his new wife. Not his current wife.
Yeah.
Sorry, Isaac. And so I load my weeks. The weeks that I do have the kids, I'm very much 9 till 3. I do the school drop off and the school pick up, even though they are old enough to catch buses, but astoundingly they don't.
Yes.
And then during the weeks that I don't have the kids, I really load them. So I'll do longer days. We do more trips to Melbourne to do sourcing and networking and things like that. But that balance is good. It has taken a few years to get used to that, but it's definitely, it's really good balance for us, for Ash and I, and it really works very well.
And I guess sort of I'm quite a sort of measured person. I think having that clean week on, off almost makes sense, because I have friends who are in quite complex parenting structures, or it's not an even braid, and I can
No.
just see that added complication
Oh,
would just
yeah.
be.
And we tried that. It was something crazy like 3, 2 and 2 or something when the kids were little, and that's what a psychologist had recommended to me, which probably was better for them when they were little, but for our brains, it was just like
It's a lot to take on.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. How old are your kids at the moment?
So Lenny is 15, Wilbur is 13. And then Clementine.
It's a lot to remember.
It is a lot. And then Clementine is 11.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
they've sort of they've known your business for most of their lives
Most
as
of
well,
their lives,
which is exciting.
yeah. Clem would come to most meetings with me when she was little before she started school. And now she could probably run the business without me, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's quite amazing. And speaking to a few creatives sort of in that similar process, I think there's something quite wonderful about creating something that comes to fruition and, they can actually see what you're doing and designing.
Yeah.
that
I
kind of
think it is.
thing.
Look, it's different for everybody, and I very much respect and probably envy women who don't work while they're raising their children. But I think for me, it was really important for my kids to see me working really hard, particularly as a single mum,
Yeah.
so that they really appreciated where the money was coming from.
Yeah. It's challenging. And I also think when you're in that creative headspace as well, it can be a hard thing to turn off.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, very, very much. And, when you're starting out a business, the lines are blurry.
Yeah.
Emails are all hours, and even when you've got little kids, working is all hours. And
Yeah.
I think it's amazing how we convince ourselves that it's okay to be doing selections at 9 o'clock at night because that's the only time we have. But yeah, I've got much, much better at creating those boundaries for myself out of necessity, probably more than anything after the burnout.
Yeah.
That it was, boundaries around my time was not a luxury. It was very much a necessity. And so I'm able to switch off really easily once I leave the office, which is great.
Yeah, which is a good skill in itself.
Very
I find
much.
I'm not very good at doing that. I'll wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and think, oh my God, I didn't reply to that email.
And delayed send
I
is
know,
really good.
which is
so they
terrible.
don't think you're crazy working at 2 o'clock
I
in the
know.
morning.
Well, it's sort of wild, but I think sometimes trying to keep across the admin of children and life and,
Yeah, the mental load
Yeah.
is real, especially for women. I think, and I feel really passionate about it because I think it's very unspoken and we just kind of get on with it and put our big girl knickers on, and
Yeah.
sometimes we don't need to because it's a lot.
Yeah, and I think that sort of sense of like I've never been someone who's normally forgotten something.
Yes. And then
And
when you
suddenly
do,
I'm thinking, oh gosh.
and then you try to say to people, this is not like me, but actually you're thinking, oh my God, maybe it is like me now.
Maybe this is me.
Yeah.
No, it's challenging. It's very challenging. Moving into the final questions before we wrap. The Her Edit. I did want to ask you, can you remember a first design related purchase you ever made?
Yes, when I was about 9, Freedom released this Aztec-inspired interiors range, and I was obsessed with this Aztec-inspired rug.
Amazing.
And so I made Dad go halves with me in this rug for my bedroom, and I think it was like $120 back then, which is an astounding amount of money in 1995.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really into it.
Oh, that's very cool. When I'm thinking what my 9-year-olds do, like Labubu's, it's much more sophisticated.
Yeah, I've always had champagne taste.
Yeah. That's very, have you still got the rug?
No, I wouldn't even know. Though I'd love to know where it is. Probably in
Yeah.
a tip somewhere.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I know obviously in design we're looking at a lot of furniture and lighting and all sorts of wonderful things. Are there any particular pieces that you're coveting at the moment? Is there anything on your hit list?
Probably not. Ash is renovating a house. Ash and Nicole are renovating a house, and I am insanely jealous of their renovating a house. And even though I know that there are pros and cons to renovations always, but it's amazing how, after having done a couple of, I think it's like having a baby.
Yeah.
You forget how bad it is, and you just are left with this beautiful end result. And
I
then
know,
I
and
want to
there's
do it
something
again.
special about being able to design your own space.
Very
as well, I
much.
think.
Yep. So, but probably not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Next travel destination, actual or aspirational?
Jason and I are planning a trip to Italy next year.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. Though sometimes when the fuel crisis happens, I think how on earth are we going to get there?
I know,
But
it's a bit
we're
wild
planning.
at the moment.
Yeah.
I know, we have to keep looking ahead.
You do.
don't we? Otherwise,
We need things to look forward to.
don't know what's happening.
Correct.
Design faux pas you secretly love or love to hate?
Ooh, I hate. I really have a thing about geographical styling. So if in
yes.
Ballarat, if people want to put some seashells on their coffee table, it
Oh,
really
yeah.
makes my eye twitch because I understand that
Far away
everyone
from
wants
the
to
ocean.
be
Yeah.
near the ocean. I understand that, but we're not. And so I really, let's keep it local. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's very funny. Favorite creative icon, living or legend?
Look, I really admire, and this is probably a bit of an outlier from most responses you get to the question, but I really admire the Kardashians, not
Yeah.
because of their style.
Yep.
Their style is not my style, but I really admire the way that they live their brand, and they've completely recreated themselves from
Yep.
who they were in the early 2000s, and they permeate their brand every time they leave the house. And now they're kind of, we talk about trends, and they are dictating every single trend.
I know, it's pretty insane,
It's
actually. I
insane.
was listening to an interview, Kris Jenner
Yes.
on Here's the Thing, Alec Baldwin's
Oh, yeah,
podcast,
yeah.
and they actually had kids at school together.
Oh,
so
wow.
anyway, I quite like his interview style, but she was basically saying for her it was sink or swim. She's
Yeah.
like, I had all these children, I needed money, someone was at our house, and she just went for it. And I thought, it's pretty impressive.
Pretty, and she
I mean,
went
I
for
couldn't
it,
have done
and
it.
She has created a juggernaut. Like it's really impressive.
And
to
all
watch.
of them have these amazing businesses which just seem to
Yeah.
go from strength to
Thrive.
strength.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're all buying it, whether we like it or not.
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. The final question, if your star was a celebrity, who would it be?
I reckon it would be maybe George Clooney.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think he's very statesmanly. He's very classic. He's universally appealing. But I think also underneath, what I really love about him is I think that there's this eccentricity and this playfulness that we don't really get to see a lot of. So yeah, I love that. The most charismatic people are the flip side of two coins. So.
Yeah, I remember reading a wonderful Vanity Fair article about him. It must have been about 15 years ago, and he had a pet pig. And I thought, that is wild.
Exactly. Yeah, that. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, Genevieve. I've absolutely loved speaking with you.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.